Right now, a few years down the road from here, there's a stranger wearing your face, living in the house you're building for them tonight. And every single day, you steal from them. They pay for the workout you skip, the money you don't save, the call you keep dodging. Future you inherits all of it. And here's the part that should rattle you a little. Your brain has no idea who they are. For years, you've called this laziness, weak willpower, a discipline problem. It isn't. What you're actually looking at is estrangement from yourself stretched across time. Stay with me, because by the time this ends, you're going to meet them. Tonight, actually. And there's a decent chance you won't like how you've been treating them. Picture someone standing a little way up the road ahead of you. Same height, same walk, back turned. You have never once seen their face. That's not a poetic reach. It's closer to what your brain is doing than you'd ever guess. Because you don't have a discipline problem. You have a relationship problem with a person who doesn't exist yet. Start with a pattern economists have been measuring for decades. We don't weigh the future the way we weigh right now. $20 today beats $25 next month. A warm bed now beats the run you swore you'd take. The reward doesn't get smaller. It just gets further away. And your brain treats further away like it isn't real. They call it present bias. The discount curve is steep, and it's steepest right up close. That's why later always loses to now. Tomorrow you can handle it. Next week you will start. Next year you will finally begin the thing. And every one of them is quietly waiting on a person who never shows up. And it isn't only about skipped workouts and snoozed alarms. Look at a retirement statement. That number isn't really money. It's a letter addressed to the stranger, and most of us leave it half blank. Not out of cruelty, out of distance. You can't quite bring yourself to save for a face you've never seen. Here's where it stops being a feeling and shows up on a screen. In 2009, 3 researchers slid people into a brain scanner and gave them a strange little task. Think about yourself. Now think about a stranger. Now think about yourself 10 years from now. And they watched what the brain did in each case. There's a patch behind your forehead, the medial prefrontal cortex, that lights up when you think about you. When those people pictured their future selves, it dimmed. It answered less. It responded almost the way it did to a stranger. It was a small study, 18 people. So hold it loosely. But here's what got me. The wider that gap, the more a person's brain shrugged at future them, the more steeply they discounted their own future. The less they felt like that person, the harder they robbed them. Which is the whole tragedy packed into a single line. So, let me tell you a story about a young man and the old stranger who lived at the end of his hall. There was a young man in a tall, quiet house. He never saw the stranger down the hall. He only knew him by what got left behind. Small things at first. Every night, the young man made one small mess and went to bed. A glass left out, a letter left sealed, a promise left for morning. And every morning, the mess was gone, cleaned, quietly, by the man down the hall. So the young man decided the stranger did not mind. He got bolder. He let the dishes climb. He let the letters stack into a tower. He borrowed money in the stranger's name and spent it on a good, bright night. The debt was never his. It belonged to the old man at the end of the hall. Years went by like that. He never once knocked on that door. Until one winter he was tired and the house was cold, and he walked to the end of the hall himself. He opened the door, and the room was full of everything he had ever left behind. The sealed letters, the broken promises, the wreckage of 1,000 small nights. And in the middle of it, an old man was still cleaning, slowly, his hands shaking. The old man looked up, and the young man saw his own face, just older and so much more tired. He had been the stranger all along. That's the room. That's the person waiting at the end of your hall. And every choice you skip tonight, you're not throwing it away. You're mailing it to them. Not one dramatic betrayal. That was never how it worked. It's 1,000 tiny withdrawals, each one too small to feel like theft. A drink, an hour, a deadline slid one more day down the hall. So how do you stop robbing a stranger? You do the one thing you have never done. You introduce yourself. In 2011, a researcher named Hal Hirschfield tried exactly that. He showed people a photo of their own face, aged, wrinkled, 60, 70 years old. Then he asked how much they'd set aside for retirement. The ones who had just met their older face put away close to double in that study. Now, careful. That was a lab. The money was hypothetical. One version showed double, another about a third more. Nobody's promising your bank balance doubles, but the direction is the entire point. The future self you can see is a future self you'll protect. The stranger stops being a stranger the second you look at their face. The philosopher Derek Parfit spent a whole book on this back in 1984. His argument went like this: you are not one solid thing marching through the years. The you of today and the you of 40 years from now are connected, but by a chain, and that chain gets thinner the further out it runs. Your distant future self, Parfit said, is less like you and more like a very close relative. And that's oddly the best news in this whole story. Because you already know how to protect someone you love. The problem was never a lack of willpower. It was a missing introduction. Meet them once, and future me stops being a fog. It becomes a person with a Tuesday. A person with a back that aches. A person who either thanks you tonight or pays for it. Remember the figure up the road? The one with your walk back turned? Something happens when you finally picture their face. They slow down, and then they turn around. So here's what's going to happen tonight. You'll hit a small, boring moment. Today you want something, and future you gets the bill. One more episode. The snooze. The card you swipe without looking. And in that half second, there they are. The stranger with your face. Standing at the end of the hall, hand out, waiting to see what you send them. You can rob them like you always have, or you can stop and picture them for 1 second and ask the only question that ever mattered here. Would I do this to someone I love? You were never lazy. You were just alone in there. Two strangers sharing one life, never once speaking. Discipline was never the real fight. The fight was to stop handing your own future to a person you refuse to meet. So before you close this, introduce yourself. Down in the comments, write one line to the person you're becoming. Start it with 3 words. Dear future me. Then name one thing you'll stop stealing from them, starting tonight. Name them, and they stop being a stranger. So tonight, when you meet the one with your face, don't look away this time. Turn around and say hello.